Everybody, we're going to get started here. I'm Alex Dunlap. I'm a career assistant at the Career Resource Center, and welcome to What Can I Do with an Economics Major. We have some great panelists here tonight who are going to chat a little bit about their career path and what they've done with their econ majors. So I'll let them introduce themselves and speak about themselves for a little bit, and then we'll open it up for questions. And that'll go till about 8, and then you can feel free to stay back and chat with anyone that you want to, and yeah, we'll get started here. So Julie's going to start us off.
Thank you. There we go. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm Julie Donay. I'm a 97 graduate of St. Ben St. John's from the economics department. I was a major in econ with a minor in management. My first job after graduation was actually for a local company here in St. Cloud called Process Pro Software. I spent 12 years at that company working from the ranks of more of an operations role to spending probably about the last 8 years that I was there. I focused a lot on human resources management and also product management, kind of overseeing the development of this software package that this company had made and developed locally. At the time that I had left there, I was in an executive position, very much enjoyed it, but was looking for another change. Around the same time, actually it was in 2005, I went back to school at St. Cloud State University and obtained my MBA, Master's in Business Administration degree. So very much a business focus was kind of the track that I took with my econ knowledge and skills. About 4 years ago, though, I switched and I moved into the healthcare arena. Still focused on business management. I'm an administrator for a private practice called Physicians Neck and Back Clinics in Sartell, and we focus on providing care for patients who suffer from chronic neck and back pain. I'm not a clinician. I didn't change that type of field, but managing the business aspects of it. And I really enjoy it. It's a small environment, but it's a really broad-focused position in terms of overseeing really everything from a day-to-day basis, from still focusing on HR, but I handle all the financials, I handle marketing, really, all day-to-day things that would be associated with the business. That's kind of what I enjoy about what I've had the opportunity to do, just getting to see all aspects of the business, from everything coming in the door to everything going out the door. And I think some of the things that I found is advantageous to my education in economics was really those analytical skills that you can take with really in so many areas of business. I'm sure the others will have things to share too, but whether it's on the financial side or just maximizing resources and people and being able to develop relationships with people as well. But the analytics piece, I think, is kind of that core thing that has really stayed with me through all these years. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina Nessie. I'm a 2009 graduate of St. Ben's and St. John's as an economics major and political science major as well. Kind of battled that one out back and forth and found myself in a couple different degree programs before ending up there, and can happily say and honestly say I think that was one of the best choices I could have made, being an econ major. I'm not sure if you're in the area of your lives of being influenced to choose or not, or just looking at the path following it. But if I would give one piece of, or be the propaganda for the department, I would say you're making a good choice by going that direction. Anyways, so I've been out of school for about 4 years. The first 2.5 that I was out of school, I worked for a company called Hardwick Day in the Twin Cities. It's a really small consulting company. And what we did is actually very instrumental to how we are here and how an institution operates. We worked on essentially their optimization or private college optimization models for enrollment and financial aid. I can see eyes shutting at that idea already. So anyways, following that, I decided to head back to graduate school. I'm currently a master's candidate at the Humphrey School at the University of Minnesota. I have 1 semester left. 4 or 5 months of 1 semester left, not that I'm counting. Anyways, and so I'm studying urban planning and focusing on transportation planning, which has actually been a pretty strong passion of mine while I was an undergrad, still within the economics department, and throughout those couple of years working at my previous job. So I also work at a consulting company now in transportation planning, and that doesn't really tell you a lot other than I plan transportation. But a lot of what I do is focused on looking at the costs and benefits of implementing different projects, whether it's a roadway project, building different transit networks, the social and economic impacts of those types of projects, and how we invest our money. So kind of just to echo what was already said, I think one of the strongest things that stuck with me as a grad student especially, and hanging out in the economics classes I'm now taking, and also in my career, is definitely the analytical set of skills that I really had a foundation given to me within the econ department. So taking regression analysis courses, the quantitative methods, just trying to think of how the courses are named, and they're a little bit different than mine right now. Anyways, so anything that you can spend digging in data and looking at analytical ways of analyzing whatever specific area you're interested in, I would highly recommend. Another thing that I thought was extremely beneficial, especially for my first couple of years, was taking a couple of computer science classes. That logic of looking at how programming is done and how you can combine those analytical skills with the logic of creating an application in Excel, for example, has really been instrumental and kind of set me aside from some of my current classmates in getting the job that I now have, and was also, like I said, very helpful for that first job too.
Hello, my name is Nick Sanner. I'm a 02 grad of St. John's, the lone Johnny on the panel here. I started my career down at the Mayo Clinic. I worked in healthcare ever since I graduated. Worked as a finance analyst at the Mayo Clinic for about 7 years. And about 3 years into it, maybe 2 to 3 years into it, ended up on a project implementing or replacing our general ledger accounting system, payroll system, HR system, and that project lasted for 4 years. So when you have an employer that has over 50,000 employees and several locations and 6 or 7 different hospitals, it's a big task. And so that introduced me to the world of projects and project management. Ended up with probably 3 or 4 different roles within that project over about a 4-year span, whether it was just coordinating a testing phase of the project, or leading different project groups, or implementing different pieces of the software to come up before others. After that, I worked in a department called Planning Services for just about 2 years at Mayo. Worked on financial statement creation and other projects, but everything kind of had a project or software implementation feel to it. Now, about 3 years ago, my wife and I moved back up to the St. Cloud area. She graduated with her master's degree and took a job as a nurse practitioner at a small family practice clinic, and so she said, let's go back up and be close to grandparents and that kind of thing. We have 2 small kids right now. And so I said, all right, well, I'll look for a job. And the one of them that I found was at the St. Cloud Hospital or CentraCare Health System as a project manager. And I thought, well, this is basically what I've been doing. I wasn't called a project manager at the time, but thought, you know what, why not give it a shot? And interviewed, got the job, and I love it because I love the variety of it. We do a lot of different projects, whether it's focused on the technology side, whether it's implementing electronic medical records or different pieces of our electronic medical record system. You guys might hear this term over the next couple of years. I'm working on the project now for the whole health system to bring us to ICD-10 compliance, so it's the new code set. So when doctors code their procedures or their diagnoses, they use a code that's then translated into billing terms so they can bill it. So it's where the revenue is generated from, as other healthcare folks would know. So that's a big one. And really everything revolves around just the planning and the implementation stages. So, we were talking a little earlier about, I remember sitting in a chair like you guys were 10 years ago and thinking, I don't want to get a degree in accounting because I don't want to be an accountant. I don't want to, be a tax accountant or be an auditor. Well, looking back, that wouldn't be a bad degree to have because you don't have to be an accountant. And I think that's the tough thing for an economics major is, how many economists are there, or at least high profile, besides the ones we have sitting in this room. But, most of us, we end up in business or we end up in, the finance world. And it's that analytical thinking skills, it's the problem solving skills, I think that you learn from a background in econ that are really valuable to you. So.
Hi, my name is Kelly Werner. I graduated in 2003. After I graduated, I got into the world of finance. I didn't have any connections in that area, so I started as a bank teller. Kind of worked my way up from there. Started off as teller, moved into the operations area where you balance general ledgers, help customers with kind of all the back-end type banking, things that people think are done automatically. From there, I moved into lending, and I got to make decisions for the bank regarding what customers got loans. After that, the president asked me if I would be interested in being his assistant, so I moved up to the president's assistant. That wasn't a full-time job, so I also took on HR with the caveat that I would get an HR education. So the bank sent me back to school, paid for my MBA with a HR concentration. From there, I took on the role of HR manager. After that, I was recruited by the insurance firm that the bank worked with for their benefits. And that was about 4 months ago, so I am now in the world of insurance. It's been a great career path. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Some of the specific things I think that have helped with my career path, looking back at some of the classes, macroeconomics, it was great to be able to read the newspaper and know, hey, GDP, the rate of GDP is slowing. Okay, so maybe businesses aren't going to be looking for as many loans. Maybe we don't need to hire a new lender. And I could make recommendations based on what I was seeing in the news. Saving the bank tens of thousands of dollars in benefits and salary. So that's maybe one specific class that really helped me. Also, Econ 384. I know you guys are all really looking forward to that class. Is it still Econ 384? Okay. The president would throw projects at me. I would have no idea where to even start on them. But Econ 384 kind of gave me the background and at least an idea of, okay, start with a spreadsheet, start with this, start by researching, research. And from there, I was able to make presentations. I was able to make presentations that the president then gave. So that was also a great class. Right now for my job, I also have to give presentations. So I know you guys are all really looking forward to the presentation you have to give in front of everyone's parents. But that was a great experience too. So from here, I think we're going to open it up for questions.
Well, maybe if you guys want to kind of talk about what a typical day is like for you at your different jobs.
Is there such a thing as typical? Every day for me is very different. I could be working on one project at 1 minute, and the next I won't get back to that project for another week. Really driven by day to day. For me, it's what do my staff need? If they have an issue coming up with the computer system, we need to address that. If we have a patient issue that for some reason I need to get involved with, I get pulled into that. It can very much vary from day to day, but anywhere from working a full day behind my computer, working on spreadsheets and analyzing data, whether it's financial reports or just business volumes, patient visits, things like that, so we can balance staffing ratios and things like that. I can work on that. If we're hiring, I might be in the mode of recruiting and putting benefits packets together, things like that, information to promote our clinic. On the marketing side, one week I might be focused on, promoting ourselves externally. How do we get our name out there for recognition? So it's more of that marketing role, finding opportunities where we can get involved in the community to whether promote, educational events or things like that, and planning, whether myself gets involved or I have resources that can help with that too. Really just depends, so.
I hate to have, again, the same answer, but I'm in a little bit different situation because I'm, again, also in grad school, so my typical days are very atypical and just kind of crazy right now. But all things aside, my days at work are also very multidimensional, I guess I'll call it, in a lot of different ways. So a lot of the clients that my company has projects with are kind of based in local governments. So we're doing things all across the board, from preparing something that's kind of an overview of a project that we're proposing, say rebuilding a trail or another road in a small town. So we're preparing materials that are presentable to the public or a city council, for example. So we have some studies that are working with like the county level government or the regional government and planning organization in the Twin Cities called the Metropolitan Council. So I guess my theme there is there's a fair amount of kind of crafting a message, and I mean that in a very positive manner, not what it might sound like anyways. So crafting a message from this very analytical and detailed information and making it presentable to a public, so you can convince them that your proposed project or the project that you're researching into is one that is wise to take on in the future, and B, so it's just understandable to them. And as was mentioned a second ago, the Economics 384 course is really really beneficial because it really does challenge you to present your research and your research project in a way that's consumable to kind of a general audience, no matter what their background is. And so that's a pretty solid center of my job. That doesn't really say anything about my day. My days can go back and forth from spending 8 hours behind a computer working on spreadsheets, analyzing data, doing a lot of research that I am doing by myself and am self-motivated to do. And I have some days where, I spend a minute at my computer and 7 hours in meetings, interacting with clients, presenting, again, these projects to the public, working with the public in different types of settings, like working on design ideas for what landscaping could look like for a particular street front or whatever the project might be. So again, all over the place in the best way possible. I don't think that I could sit for 40 hours a week for 4 weeks straight, but 3 weeks straight and 1 week of public meetings I think has been a good balance for me.
Yeah, I think that would be similar in my experience. I definitely don't have a standard day. And if you're looking for something that is going to constantly challenge you, and every, I don't say every day, but certainly every quarter, it almost feels like a new job for me because it depends on the project you're assigned to. I work with all different departments across the hospital and health system. So one project I might be working with the nursing department, we implemented a barcode scanning technology that would scan the patient's armband and then scan the medication to make sure that you were safely administering medications, where the next 6 months later or 4 months later, you could be working on a project related to hospital billing, and then 4 months later, you could be working with an affiliate hospital, bringing them live on an electronic medical record. So everything's different, by the year, by the quarter, by the month, and certainly by the day. So a typical day, I could be in 6 hours of meetings, meeting with all different levels of the organization, from executives to data analysts or nursing staff. Or spend half the day at my computer working on spreadsheets or status reports or presentations to executive leadership, presentations to nursing directors and things like that. So it's certainly all over the board. So I would stress if you're looking for a role or a position that you get to do different things and every day truly is different, that project realm might be something to look into. It's certainly not for people that like the status quo. They like to feel comfortable with, their 5 or 6 operational tasks that they do on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. So, the other thing, I wouldn't say I do it on a daily basis, but I didn't mention before that I've got a certification called Project Management Professional. It's called a PMP certification. And a lot of what I do in my job right now is try to educate different people or departments on the merits or the values of managing a project instead of just, all right, what are we going to do? We want to implement this system, let's just get working on it. Let's call the vendor up and start installing it. Well, you should go through a planning phase. You should create a project charter. You should use some standard sets of methodology that are proven to help projects succeed. So a big part of my job right now is just trying to be a champion for that process within the organization and just trying to grow that.
I think the one thing we have in common is we don't really have a typical day. Same thing for me. I'm all over the board. I might be helping a client renew their insurance plans, putting together an analysis for them. I might be putting together a wellness program for them. So same thing, I might spend 4 hours at my desk and then the other 4 hours of the day out visiting clients, just depending on whatever they need. So. Well, I knew I was definitely interested in finance, so I applied for mostly financial jobs and kind of had to take the first one that came along because of the economic situation at the time. There wasn't a ton of options. We were in a recession when I graduated, so.
Yeah, I would say I was in that boat. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mentioned before, especially with econ, I think or business management, there are so many options out there, and I think if you just present yourself as a, employable young individual, keep your mind open and something will happen. I think I had a job secured by December of my senior year. Not to scare anybody if you don't have something. I kind of lucked out, went to a job fair, and it was actually an administrative training program through the finance department at Mayo. So ended up in that path, not knowing anything other than that my wife was a nurse and she wanted to be, work at Mayo, and so I thought, oh, that might work. 10 years later, I can't see myself working in any other industry than healthcare, for the next 5 years until I retire.
I like that life plan. I would like the 15-year work span. Hold on. So I'm a bit more of, I think, an example of someone who tested the water in one industry and ended up, as I mentioned, moving into another. I knew that I really loved data and analysis, and that sounds so geeky and dry, but I think you probably can all relate to that, I hope. Anyways. So that's where I was. I was at in an internship my second semester of my senior year at the Minnesota Private College Council, which is kind of the lobbying organization and fundraising organization for the private college system within Minnesota, St. Ben's and St. John's included. And they had a connection with the employer that I worked with initially. People had former positions here and there, and the world is so much smaller than you might think. It's crazy. Anyways, so I ended up there. Like I said, I'd kind of had this idea that I was really interested in transportation economics and in urban planning before I went this other path, working for the private consulting company in financial aid and admissions. And I just kept testing that out and getting some experience, which is it's so valuable no matter what you do. And I don't mean that in the sense that, your first couple of years, whatever, it's just about the experience. That's not the case either. But you're going to get something valuable out of whichever direction you choose. And if anything, it points you in a better, more pointed direction in the end. So I guess my thoughts there are that try not to stress too much about a specific industry if that's kind of what you're wavering about is, I have these 5 choices, which one's going to be the best? You'll learn so much about yourself in your first however many years out of school. You'll get there, I promise.
I didn't have a job right after graduation. I think it was probably 2 to 4 weeks after graduation before I had secured an offer. But with the broad scope that economics and management, again, I knew business was of interest to me, but at one time I had planned on focusing on finance, financial planning, which is actually my original undergraduate minor, and then I switched more into management. So it was difficult, as we've kind of talked about, if you go to school to be an accountant, exactly, you can look for the job title, the job specific that you're going after. This was a little bit of a challenge, admittedly, for me, too. I still, to this day, say, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'm still saying that, and I'm much older than the rest of you. My advice on that is look for businesses that are appealing to you. For me, at that time, I was very interested in computers and technology, and, it was before the Y2K excitement, maybe some, Anybody else remember that? Yeah. So there was a little bit of buzz going around for me at that time. But again, maybe focus on those interests or those industries that are interesting to you, that you might have a passion for. My other advice is over-apply, because if you get interviews with businesses, I don't think there's any better place where you can gain more information about a specific position until you're in that interview. And you can have that opportunity to ask that employer those questions about the role that you're going to learn a lot more about that company, that role, and about yourself just through that process. To me, the interviewing and the job hunting, it's a journey. It's a search, and it's not a real finite process. I think you'll learn a lot along the way, and you'll hopefully find the one that excites you the most.
I'll say, just to add one more thing, too. I don't know that I mentioned this the first time, but I also have my MBA. I got it through St. Thomas. Maybe that's why I forgot to mention it. But I think that over your first 2-3 years, I'd say just get a job, get any job, because any type of experience that you can get is going to be helpful, even if you don't see it on paper or you don't think it's going to be valuable. And I think all of us probably went back to school to get our master's degree 2, 3, 4, 5 years after we had been working. And that's also another thing I would recommend. Don't go right into it. I mean, if you can, great. But there's a lot of value in bringing some of that real work experience into an MBA program. I think you get a lot more out of it.
And you might get it paid for.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And I think, too, just getting your foot in the door is huge. Once you're in the door, you can show what a hard work you are, how smart you are. It just opens so many doors for you, so.
Get extra credit for asking a question, right?
What would you guys say is one of your best or worst things about your jobs and about being an economics person?
Say that again, one more time.
What's one of your best and worst things that you like about your job?
Okay.
And then, as an econ person, did you think that it was clearly you all have an econ major, but did you find that really helpful in your search for jobs? Kind of talked about it a little bit, but.
Anybody want to go first?
Well, I would say the thing I like most about my job, I mentioned it before, but it's just that the variety and the autonomy I get within my role. And again, I equate that back to, economics, really you're learning how to learn, I think, in that degree. And, more so than nursing, you go and you take your exact classes and then you go to the bedside and you display those skills. Same with accounting and some other degrees. But, something like a mathematics major or an economics major, you're learning how to learn, and I still do that today. A lot of times I'll just get a project dumped on my desk, and here you go, figure out how to do this, and the CIO or whoever else is giving us the work doesn't have time to hold your hand and get you to the end of the project. So you kind of figure out how to do that. The worst thing about my job, probably just, how many demands there are, how many things we're supposed to do, and you guys are probably all in the same boat, but, we have probably 300 project requests in our database right now, and four or five project managers to manage them. So, it's, and that's the same, probably in any role, but, just feeling like you can never do enough, probably.
I probably can't pinpoint the thing that I love the most about my job, and a lot of that is directly related to the fact that I'm in grad school and working in the desired field that I wanted, so I'm just very happy to be in that position. But one of the things that I do enjoy quite a bit is the ability to already have the skill set to do the research that I need to figure out a problem and maybe approach it differently than someone that doesn't have an economics background. So again, whether that's my background in regression analysis that I've been able to really cultivate in the last few years, and has really kind of set me on a different path in grad school, or it just my background and kind of confidence and experience with working with any data set that's kind of thrown in front of you, no matter the project or the task at hand, or whether you've seen this data set before or anything. Again, having that experience and the confidence is really helpful. So anyways, being able to do that research day to day and really figure out my problems in a different light than some of my coworkers is really something, and I don't mean that in a relative sense, but just having those tools to be able to really dig into problems and solve them creatively is one of the things that I really enjoy. I had a dislike at the top of my head that it just escaped me. Consulting as a private industry is, no matter what industry you're actually consulting for, is usually pretty demanding, and that definitely rings true in the couple of positions I've had. I frankly, when I left my first job while I was still in grad school, a week before I got my current job, I told myself I'd never work in consulting again, but here I am. So the reality of that is it's where a lot of jobs are, and I will refine that more by saying that working within the public sector, so working on projects that are applicable to the public realm, so like I said, road projects, transit systems, things like that, and out of the private sector, there are a lot of jobs that are in consulting companies and working on these public projects. So the reality is there are jobs there, but one of the most trying things about it is it's very based on politics and funding on a year-to-year basis. So politics really drives my job and kind of puts a lot of worry into people that next year there won't be this $2 billion transportation package at the federal or state level funding the work that we do day to day. And from my experience so far, a lot of that worry it hasn't rung true. But looking back 5 or 6 years, or even more recently than that, it's the worry of it being a cyclical industry is pretty realistic, and a lot of people lost their jobs in planning and engineering and architecture in the last 4 or so years. And a lot of companies are just bouncing back from that right now. So the long and short of that is the jobs are there now, but it's pretty volatile, so that gets scary. But you kind of have to ride that out if you're working for the public sector in a private company.
My best days, I think, are the ones when I can help solve a problem for something, whether it's just something for the team or it's maybe a bigger problem related to healthcare reform, and we're analyzing the changes that are coming through and how is that going to impact our clinic and different things. If I can come up with a solution, analyze a problem and come up with a solution that, whether it makes my job easier or somebody else's job better, easier, faster, those are the days I like the most. The days I like the least, and I've had unfortunately a few over the years, but anytime I have to let somebody go, whether I've been through layoffs, I've had to let somebody go because of downsizing and work volumes, or just terminating somebody because they're performance wasn't meeting expectations. Those are tough days. It's the human part of it for me that gets to be difficult on those days. The economics piece of it, though, I think how that helped carry through, when looking for a different job. I think the analytical piece, as we've kind of talked about, getting your foot in the door. I think my advice for you that are close to graduating, soon be getting into the workforce, the other piece of it is to always, always focus on relationships and working well with others. I don't know if there are definitely days, again, we sound like we all have days at our computer, but most of what I do anyway is interacting with others, and the ability to, have that team rapport, the ability just to collaborate with each other and work in a team setting is huge. So if that's not something you've had an opportunity in classes to get into some of those skills, I would, encourage you to find opportunities to do that. The more that you can network and build relationships with people, I think, the more advantageous that will be for you.
The thing I enjoy about my job the most is really being a source for my clients to ask questions to. They can come to me and say, I've looked for this answer everywhere. Is there anywhere else I haven't looked? And to have those resources and the ability to analyze their problems and really help them out is really fulfilling for me. I agree, too, back in my HR days that the worst days are when you have to discipline somebody, or terminations are also really hard to deal with. In disciplining, it's just like, we're all adults. Do we really have to go through this? But it's all part of the managing job, so.
Some of you guys touched on minors or maybe potential second majors that you looked into while at school here. I wanted to know if all of you had a minor and which ones, if you benefited from that.
I had a minor in management, and I would say definitely that helped, especially as I went back to graduate school for my MBA. A lot of those classes, both from the econ program and the management classes that I had taken, helped build the foundation for, I can't remember the credits and the requirements, but I remember it was a nice smooth transition credit-wise and class-wise to get into some of those classes. So, and certainly professionally too, in the work environment, I think all of those. I would definitely, if you have room in your schedule to have a minor that fits a focus that you're interested in, I would strongly encourage it. It was a good experience for me anyway.
I couldn't agree more. So my second major was in political science, and a way that was tremendously instrumental in helping me get my first job and getting me to where I am now is that it gave me a couple different opportunities. So not directly related to my major, but indirectly. I studied abroad in London my junior year and had an internship at the Labour Party. So on the surface, very politically oriented, but that's honestly what got me initially really interested in where I am at now, transportation pricing and congestion pricing. So pricing a road or a system of roads or transportation, take a step back there, but anyways, pricing a road to appropriately adapt to the congestion and the demand for the use of that road in a limited area or along a more refined corridor, specifically what I'm talking about here. That aside, so I had that experience in London, and also related to the political science program, I interned in DC the following summer, which made for a really fun 9 months and really fantastic experience overall. But that combined with the skills and analysis that I was able to do with my economics background, I think really gave me a strong set to move forward with. So whatever your niche is, or whatever your side or secondary or equal interest is to economics, I'd really encourage you to pursue that and really diversify your experience. I guess while I was in school, I got some advice conflicting to that of really focusing on economics. While I feel like I did have a focus there, that extra piece and kind of knowledge of the world from a different lens really was great. So something that I look back and think about all the time is what I would have done slightly differently. On the whole, I really enjoyed my experience, but the things that I would have done differently would have been diving more deeply into those side interests. So in environmental studies, it's a multidisciplinary program as it is, but there are some really great courses there that I think back and be like, yeah, it would be perfect for where I'm at now, and just take that leap. And if it's, if it's not a program you feel comfortable in, or you're not even pursuing a minor but are just really interested in the topic, it really could open a lot of doors for you. So environmental studies, like I had mentioned, and computer science is also something that I don't think I could stress more about how instrumental that could be for just day-to-day work in finance, administration, wherever you are hoping to end up.
Along with the major in economics, I had a minor in business, or management, I guess they called it. And when I did my MBA program, my focuses were on finance and project management. And I would agree, with what these guys have said. I think any minor will give you some really good background. Specifically, I think, I don't have a political science background, but a lot of the things similar to the statement about team building and working well with others, a lot of the things we do are, or at least that I do on a daily basis, are very politically driven, whether it's consensus building or things like that. Just to kind of keep those kind of things in mind. I mentioned accounting before. I started down that track and didn't finish it because of my fear of being stuck behind a desk or doing someone's taxes my whole life. But looking back on it, especially working as a finance analyst and working in accounting, an accounting background would be very helpful in business, regardless of where you end up. Having that really strong financial statement understanding is really helpful in business. And then computer science as well. Right now, I mentioned before, I'd say 80% of our projects deal with technology or computer systems in some way, and just understanding, from the software development to the installation to the configuration to the server side, any knowledge you have in that area, especially as technology just is exploding every year, that would be something that would be very beneficial.
So I took a different approach than my panel members here. I didn't have a minor. I just took classes that I thought would be fun. And I had a great time doing it. I learned how to draw. It's one of my favorite pastimes now. It's a great stress reliever. I was interested in reading, so I took English classes. I took sociology classes. And I still got my MBA, and I felt like the background the economics degree gave me was more than enough to give me what I needed to do well in my MBA program. So.
I know most of you guys, or all of you, have gone through a job transition at some point. You've all had multiple jobs. Can you maybe talk about what that experience is like? Transitioning, what made you decide to?
I can start. Like I said, I just recently transitioned from the banking world to the insurance world, and a big part of my decision was the company that I work for now, Mohold Insurance Agency, is renowned in the community for their level of service, and it's just a great company to work for. Not that I grew up thinking, yes, I want to be insurance when it's my dream job, but that was the basis for my decision, and I haven't regretted it once. So.
I think one of the hardest things about transitioning from one job to another is leaving behind those relationships you've built, and not, obviously leaving friends and people you like is difficult, but it takes a lot of years, I think, to develop some of those back roads into how to get things done in an organization. And that was one of the things I really missed, from being in one company for 7 years and just knowing who to call, especially if it wasn't the person you were supposed to call, because that takes a week, to call that other person that can do it for you in a day, or just having that support or people knowing how you do your work and trusting you. So taking another 1 or 2 or however many years it takes to build up that trust and respect and in some of those political back channels that you need to really get things done is probably the most difficult thing. But I think constantly changing, and I do it within my same company now. I've said it every 6 to 12 months I'm working on a different project. And so it feels like a different job to me almost all the time. And I can't stress enough how important that is to stay fresh and to experience different things and just to gain experiences wherever you can. I personally, I can't think of anything that would be worse than, the monotony of doing the same type of thing for the same department and working on the same process and just doing that day-to-day operational job over and over. So, it is painful for a little bit, but you're going to learn a lot going through that transition.
So my biggest transition has been out of my first job back to grad school. I could say a lot of things about that. I truly love to learn and love being a student, so that was kind of a treat there, but it's different than transitioning from a job to a job. But one insight that I did have there that I think would be helpful was more that I had an entrepreneurial opportunity with leaving my former company, in that I was able to work as a private consultant to the consulting company. So working as a private contractor, I should say, kind of doing the same tasks, working with the same clients, some more intensely or focused on specific projects than I had been as a full-time standard employee. Anyways, it really was pretty eye-opening for looking at the world as a private contractor or someone that's about to start their own business or hoping to do that in the future. And really reassuring too that it's really quite possible that if that's your interest, to not work for a larger company or smaller, but rather your own, or to go off on your own path, whatever it may be, it's definitely a possibility. So if that interests you and you find yourself in a job in 4 or 5 years and are interested in that but want to take your own twist on it, I'd really encourage you to do that. And all things aside, insurance and stability, et cetera, all of that aside, maybe if you ever find yourself in grad school and needing a side job, be an entrepreneur, start your own company, be a contractor. A unique transition experience from job to grad school, but I think an insight that I wouldn't have if I didn't have my economics background and wasn't able to hang out with huge data sets all the time and make good things out of them.
When I think of job changes, I think stress. It's a lot of work. It's a process. I think I kind of touched on that already. Many of you will go through that for the first time soon, I'm assuming. It's a journey. It's work. It's time intensive, but it's also rewarding. The first time I chose to make a career change, quite frankly, I was bored where I was at. I had kind of tapped out where I was at. Actually, a few years prior to that was when I decided to go back to grad school. I figured I loved the company I was with, but I needed a new mental challenge, so that was when I went back to school. But several years after that, again, 12 years I was with my first company, just needed that change. But it's difficult, as you touched on, those relationships that you have with people and that comfort zone that you can develop. And I think the older we get, the harder that becomes to break out of those comfort zones. But it was important for me. It was a challenge I wanted to take for myself, try something different. I felt confident it was something I could do, move forward with it, and haven't regretted it at all. What I did find was, as we kind of talked a little bit tonight about the economics degree, it's a little bit general in the sense it's not a specific job title that you might be going for. It was difficult for me in that same position, also saying, what do I want to be when I grow up? I'm still saying that. But it was also nice to have options that I could look at what I was doing in one industry, in the software, technology world, and I was able to completely transfer what I was able to do and the skills that I had into healthcare, something completely different. So the variety, the broad scope of, it has its pros and cons. It's not specific. It makes it difficult to sometimes find, but it also makes it transferable too. So you kind of got the catch-22 there. But if you're lucky enough to find those things that you're going after, it can work towards your favor that way, I guess. So.
Maybe 1 to 2 more questions.
You guys do your senior research projects on the capstone.
I remember mine. It was the rising divorce rates, and I did regressions on education and divorce. What else? The levels of education women were attaining in divorce. I think number of kids in divorce. I don't know. I ran like 1,000 regressions, I think, and and none of them were statistically significant. So, but that's okay. That's okay.
This might surprise you, but mine was related to transportation. It was testing the induced demand theory, and at its very basic core, essentially it's looking at whether if you expand the capacity of a road, so usually by increasing the number of lanes and therefore the ability to move more cars through, whether that will essentially clear up traffic and kind of solve the problems that we're looking at day in and day out, or whether it will essentially induce people to travel to that road as opposed to a route that they may have traveled, or decisions that they may have made otherwise, knowing that it was a congested place to be, because it's a faster place to travel through and easier, less traffic, less of a headache, less people cutting you off, et cetera. Hey, why not? It's an appealing option. And so anyways, testing that in 3 different states, I believe, to see whether the expansion of these roads over a 10 or 15-year period actually did increase the vehicle miles traveled through those particular geographic areas. And if I remember correctly, one of my 3 regressions was statistically significant, and John's nodding his head back there because he was my advisor. Had to see this time and again. He was also a fantastic recommendation for grad school. Just throwing that out there, relationships are very important. But anyways, testing that theory and kind of really digging into some data sets I had no idea what I was doing with at the time, or at least I felt that way. But it was a great learning experience. So don't dread it. It'll be good.
Boy. Mine had something to do with focusing on a single commodity and the impact that had on a country's economy. So I looked at rising and falling coffee prices and its relation to Brazil's economic impact. And looking back on it, obviously I don't use those studies in my everyday job now, working in healthcare. But again, I would say it doesn't matter really what you do it on. It's all about the process. And now in my job as a project manager, you really see that, because like I said before, many times you're not given all the pieces of information you need in order to be successful in something, and it's all about how you get to the end result, whether it's a theory, a hypothesis, going through those regressions and testing them, whether it's the planning stages of your project or the project you have at work. So, I remember the professor stressing that, don't stress out on what your topic is. It's not about the topic. It's about doing the project and learning what you're going to learn throughout it. Putting the data together, analyzing the data, and then ultimately presenting your findings, whether or not there was any findings to find. So they're nodding back here because I'm sure you have students that say that all the time. So I'm a living example. I did nothing with mine, but it all worked out. I have a job now.
I can barely remember mine. I think it had something to do with analyzing the privatization of Social Security, maybe. It was a long time ago.
Let's try that.
Do you remember that? And I don't really remember what the analysis even proved, but I would agree. It's the process. Learning how to learn. Yeah. Good questions, by the way.
All right, so just before we wrap this up, if we could just thank our panel members just one more time. Fill out your evaluation forms, and then there's cookies and water in the back if anyone wants it. And you're welcome to talk to the panel back here if you
Yeah,
consider.
definitely. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop up.
Thanks.
actually have like a rubber base that doesn't make a lot of funk.
Or scraping.
Right.
So you've got a little bit of drive yet.
I do, yeah. So my boyfriend is a big fan of Anton's, and so I drug him with me, and he's currently visiting his cousin